talk about design is business, because it says so on my shirt and on the postcard that Ken or Corinne gave me that says good design is business. So I'm going to give you the 8-minute talk that I gave at IDSA in August. And it was Rachel who told me about the conference long ago on a bike ride in. I didn't even know that they were having this. I felt like I was a special ambassador to the world of design from business, and people came up and talked to me as though they were really touching a real live business person, and that I wasn't scary and I didn't have on a 3-piece suit, and it was kind of a surreal celebrity experience. At the same time, it was kind of awkward because as much as the theme of this conference is design is business, and I have some of these things around, there was still a lot of us and them talk. Like all presenters were still talking in this us and them way. So I'm going to give you my talk, and I'm going to kind of cheat and read it because I haven't practiced it since I gave it. But I definitely, 2 things happened. I went on the fly and started out by saying, no, we really are. So I went off script and said, we really are us. We are not us. We are not them and me and you. Like, design is business and it is us. And the other thing that happened, which is kind of, I looked for the tape, is that my slides, so all of the presenters in the afternoon were on the main stage. It was like 400 people, and we all had 8-minute slots. And I was first, and the guy behind me's presentation was grouped with mine, and he had his on auto advance. And I did not have mine on auto advance until I got up on stage, and they started to auto advance. So I felt really sort of professionally proud of myself for holding it together and doing things like, oh, could you back that slide up by 2 slides? And it went fine, and I'd sort of love to see myself to see if it was as smooth as I thought it was, because it may not have been at all. But I was very proud of myself for keeping my hands on my side and standing in the middle of the red rug, which is harder than you would think. So I'm going to give this to you, and it's going to be a little bit stunted and stilted because I'm rusty, but I believe what I'm saying, and I hope I convince you, because design is good business. So this slide is about the fact that when I was in business school, so the first year of my business school program was like 15 years ago, and Facebook was really still a book. So raise your hand if you knew that Facebook was a book at one point. Okay, so it was a thing that we had, and so everybody who was going into business school got to put their face in and say where they were from and what their hobbies were and where they'd worked before. And so I was this journalism undergrad who'd worked in marketing, and I was blissfully ignorant of the fact that my classmates, had patents and were MDs and had worked in investment banking. And so I put down something like the fact that I was a journalism major and a marketing major, and that I was voted most creative in my high school class. Which is true, but imagine how embarrassed I was when all of my classmates had all these accomplishments, and I just felt like, that's it? That's all I've got, is I was voted most creative. When people complimented me on it, I thought they were just pitying me. So fast forward 15 years, now I work at a design firm, and I'm the director of business design, and it's a title that I do believe is crucial, and I do sometimes feel like I'm a bit out of step with my colleagues. So the things that I look at in business are not necessarily the exact same things that designers look at, but we're all trying to do the thing, which is march in step. So while everyone likes to believe that business and design are completely different species and that they don't speak the same language, I really believe that they do. I think that they're both human-centered, they're both altruistic, they're both trying to make the world a better place. They might define it differently as to what that world is, but they're all trying to move something forward. So they're different. There's just different words and different tools. So, and that goal is to make the most desirable and most relevant thing manifest in the world. So I feel like I have become bilingual. In my creative world before MBA, business school, I had to learn a whole new language there because I was so out of step with my peers, and then working here for the last 6 years. So designers sketch, right? Those of us who cannot sketch anything are just amazed by the type of work that people like you can do, because I cannot do this. But this is how a designer gets ideas out. I mean, this is probably Corey's work. If Corey's on the line, he's probably like, you stole my images for your presentation. But these obviously are not rough sketches. They've got pretty high fidelity, but people are getting their ideas out by doing this. Business designers do the exact same thing. Like, I'm a real designer too, I just use Excel. And I get my sort of sketches and broad brush ideas out by thinking about the numbers and making it tangible by thinking about the scenarios that could happen. So if a toilet brush is 49 cents versus 53 cents, what is that going to do for the price and demand? Sort of that toilet brush example. So say I have an idea for a toilet brush and it's for institutional bathrooms and it has an extra long handle and a cone-shaped brush. A designer would sketch it on a tablet to communicate the essence. They wouldn't get down to the real fidelity of it. But in my case, I would start to do the exact same kind of sketching and pencil it in. So you can say a sketch in design language equals scenario in business design language, both trying to get the ideas out. Everyone knows a proof of principle, sort of table stakes in engineering. So if you don't establish a baseline of physical feasibility, there's no point in moving forward, right? It has to be able to work in the real world. And a proof of principle model can establish that. You know that it's probable. It's not necessarily feasible, but it's probable. In the case of the toilet brush, these engineers might need to build a proof of principle model to make sure that the extra long handle doesn't bend and that this cone-shaped brush actually even works. So in business, you might say that it's a pro forma. So a pro forma is a forward-looking set of financial documents. You're trying to get a handle on what decisions today would do potentially in the future. So not necessarily what's exactly going to happen, but how might things work out if decisions today are made in a certain way. So proofs of principle can be a pro forma. In design, one of the standard tools of the trade is a prototype, right? This is how we make things more manifest with enough basic fidelity to be able to communicate the critical ideas of how something would work. Business design, we do the same thing, but it looks like this. So this is a model. And this probably gives half of you in the room or 3/4 of the room the heebie-jeebies, because this doesn't look neat and it doesn't look like it's telling you anything. But these types of things are what people like me and Amy and other people with MBAs use to get a handle, no pun intended, on what we're creating. So you can say a prototype equals a model. There's a certain amount of fidelity that's developed within it that makes you able to move forward to the next step. So the really cool thing I think that's wonderful about design is the emphasis on user experience. So a well-designed product isn't just useful, but it's also delightful. It captures the hopes and dreams of people when they use it. And it's got value just beyond aesthetics, right? A real useful product has to be actually meaningful and useful and have utility. One thing that we do is when we are working with customers, help them develop a value prop. So anything in the world can exist, but why? A beautiful vase has to still hold water for flowers. A beautiful idea for a business has to be valuable to somebody just beyond the idea that it's kind of exciting. So by creating a value proposition, this is how a business designer ensures that a product solves a pain point, just like the pain points we look at, or designers look at, when they're trying to solve for products. So user experience and value prop have similarities. So as a bilingual speaker of design and business, I do want to stress this point, that you might want to rethink everything you've ever thought about business designers and think of them as designers too. So I can vouch for people who like numbers and who like things neat and orderly and profitable, but it doesn't mean that we aren't all trying to do the same thing, which is make design live and breathe out in the world.